Welcome to Wine Soundtrack USA. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world. In 30 answers, discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of the Wine Soundtrack podcast. This is Kim Cashmore, and today you are going to hear the incredible story of Justin Trabue from Ward 4 Wines. Justin is the founder and winemaker, and I'm so excited to bring this conversation to you because she has such a great energy, and I just think you're going to be able to feel it right through your headphones. Welcome, Justin.
Thanks, Kim. Thank you so much for having me.
So to start this off, can you tell me a little bit about where your winery is located and what kind of wines you make?
Of course, I make low intervention wines working with lesser discussed grape varieties. So I'm based out of Sonoma, California. I make all my wines at an awesome custom crush facility called Obsidian Wines. And I source my wines from as far north as Mendocino, California, and as far south as Paso Robles, California.
And we are actually in Paso Robles right now.
Yeah, we are.
We're here for a conference, and I'm so glad that we finally got to meet because I have been seeing you, out there in the world killing it, and it's so awesome to be sitting here with you. So to start this off, I want to kind of go back to the beginning and your story and what got you into winemaking. So what were you doing before you got into winemaking, and did you think that this was going to be a path for you, or did you always know?
So I moved out to California in 2013, right after I graduated high school. I immediately moved to California to study at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, so just about 30 minutes from where we are now.
So that means that you were hoping to get into wine? You kind of knew already?
I definitely knew already. I feel really lucky. My parents came out to Paso Robles in '94 before most people knew what Paso Robles was, and they went to Justin Vineyards, and they had a lot of fun, and I was born pretty soon after. And even in addition to that, I always had wine on the table.
I love that. So your parents sort of inspired your love for wine.
Exactly.
And what kind of wines were they always having on the table? Was it American wines, European wines?
My dad loves European wines. My parents growing up, they go to France pretty often. My dad likes Bordeaux wines and my mom likes Burgundies.
Is your last name Trabue? Is that French?
It is.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. That's awesome. I love that. All right. So you always wanted to be a winemaker. You went to Cal Poly?
I did.
Okay. So you went to Cal Poly, you graduated, and then what happened?
Post-graduation, so I was there 2013 and 2017. 2016, I did my very first harvest down in Santa Barbara County. I worked at that winery for about 5 years, so 2016 until 2020. And I decided that I wanted to transition from like full-on wine business into doing hospitality and production at the same time.
Okay, so are you in the hospitality industry right now, in addition to also being a winemaker?
Yes, so I do hospitality at Scribe Wines over in Sonoma. Beautiful Pinot Noirs. They make great Chardonnay, but they also work with Riesling and Sylvaner. So they work with some like lesser discussed varieties as well as Saint Laurent.
Oh, Saint Laurent. I don't think I've had that one before. What can you tell us a little bit about that grape?
Saint Laurent's pretty cool. Scribe has been working with it for the last 7 years, and it's an Austrian grape variety. So it's a hybrid. Zweigelt and Blaufränkisch, also known as Pinot Noir, are the parent grapes. So it's super light. It's still textural, and it's a lot more floral than most Pinots.
I love a good floral wine.
I do too.
Oh. So you mentioned that you did a little bit of traveling, that you were making wine in different places, but I know you've done more than that, and you actually wrote an article for the Somm Journal about that. Can you tell us more about your travels in winemaking?
Yes. So my first international travel for winemaking, I would have to say started even before I started doing production. My junior year, I went into study abroad in Adelaide, Australia, and I was there for about 4 months studying at the University at Adelaide, and that was really how I realized that I wanted to do production. We were there during their harvest season because it's Southern Hemisphere, saw harvest for the first time, realized I could go abroad for it. So about 3 years later in 2019, I ended up doing my first harvest in New Zealand. And I was there for just over 6 months. It was a really great opportunity. I was up on the North Island, and I felt lucky because I got to do a smaller production vintage. So it was just me and one other intern, and we still talk to this day. So that was awesome.
Wow, that must have been such a formative experience. When you were there, did you feel really inspired to work with a certain type of grape? Was there something that really caught your eye?
Absolutely. I moved to New Zealand to make Syrah. I worked at CJ Pask up in the heart of the Gimlet Gravels in Hawke's Bay. And Gimlet Gravels is like some of the original Syrah plantings out there. Really, really beautiful vines. So I moved to Hawke's Bay to work at CJ Pask and make Syrah.
Wow, how long were you over there?
6 months. It was wonderful.
Sounds amazing. Now, I think something that a lot of people might be wondering is, how did you find these opportunities? Because I bet there's a bunch of winemakers out there listening to this who are like, wait, I want to go over there and make wine in other countries. So how did you find these opportunities?
I did a lot of searching. In the United States, you have wine jobs. You also have that in New Zealand. You also have it in South Africa. You have it in Australia. Every country has their own like wine jobs page. So firstly, start there. Then you can also use a lot of like community-based opportunities. So I found most of my jobs, if not all of them, through this really cool Facebook group called Traveling Winemakers Living the Dream. It is one of the coolest opportunities on Facebook, and people are posting every day about jobs as well as just like getting to know each other. It's a really cool community.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So if you are looking for an internship somewhere, that's where to look. That's where to go. And I do agree that it can also be community based. I spent a week in Paso. I'm not a winemaker, but I got to observe and get my hands dirty in the winemaking process, which I think is so formative for any person who's a professional in the wine industry. Even for consumers, if you really love wine, just to get in there and really see how it's made, it's pretty awesome. Yeah, and it's all community-based. I mean, I got that opportunity through someone that I knew, and it sounds like a few of your opportunities were the same for you.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about how you got into making your own wine line and what that situation is like. So you were traveling, you got so many great experiences, you fell in love with making Syrah, but now you make a bunch of different grapes. So I'm curious, what started Ward 4 Wines? Like, at what moment did you kind of realize, okay, I want to make my own line of wine?
So it's interesting you say that, because I went to Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, and they require you to choose your major when you start. So I knew going into San Luis Obispo that I wanted to study wine. I knew I wanted to study wine business, and they said, if you could do anything, what would you start? And I said, I'd start my own wine brand. That was back in 2013. So I had like the idea for Ward 4 Wines almost a little over 10 years ago. And I sort of kept it close to my chest for quite a few years. And it wasn't until 2022 when I actually got a grant funding that I really started to make Ward 4 Wines my reality. So 2021, I applied for this awesome scholarship called the Courier Fresh Fund, based in the United States, based in the UK, 10 different Black entrepreneurs, nothing to do with wine. So just different entrepreneurs entrepreneuring. And I pitched to them the idea of Ward 4 Wines. They were like, Black people in wine? I didn't even think about that. And I was like, that's why I should win. And I did. And I got like $15,000, but $15,000 is not enough to start a winery. And I applied for more grants. I ended up getting about $25,000 in funding. So 2022, after I came back from my harvest in South Africa, I went and did my very first vintage for Ward 4 Wines. And I have not looked back.
Wow. Congratulations. And I'm so glad that there was so many opportunities for you out there, that you were able to find those opportunities to be able to start your winery, because I think it's so important to have that representation, and also to allow like even just up and coming people to start, because some of these legacy brands, like they've got it, they got it down, but for smaller winemakers, it's hard.
Yes.
So with that, do you actually own your own vineyards, or where do you get your grapes from?
I do not own my own vineyards. That would be awesome. I source my grapes from all throughout the California coast, and a little bit inland as well. So as far north as Mendocino, I source some Barbera, really beautiful vineyard called Zacharias Block in the heart of Ukiah. I then also source fruit from over in Sonoma County, over in Healdsburg, in this really cool region called Dry Creek Valley, and that's going to be Grist Vineyard. I also source from Contra Costa for 2 different wines. I make a Mourvedre and I make a Muscat over in Contra Costa. And then as far south as here in Paso Robles, I make Viognier from Alta Colina Vineyards. And they are probably one of those beautiful Rhone vineyards in this area, but they're also one of the kindest families that I've probably had the pleasure of working with.
Oh, I love Alta Colina. Oh my gosh, their wines, they just... I don't know how to describe it. They're just amazing. They're just incredible.
They really are.
You need to try it. But we're talking about you. We're talking about Ward 4 Wines. We gotta celebrate you here. So What is your favorite wine to make? Can you pick a favorite?
Ooh, it's funny you say that because obviously I love working with all the varieties that I do, but my favorite wine grape is Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir is my first love. I have my first boss, Lane Tanner, to thank for that. But Pinot was a little bit outside of my accessibility range, price point wise. And, you can see there's so many beautiful Pinot Noirs and their price points can get really high. So I wanted to be able to make wines that are similar in style, but people haven't necessarily heard about the varieties, so I'm not only introducing them to new grapes, but also can show them what the potential is for everything.
Gotcha. And when you say the price point of Pinot is high, you're talking about the cost to buy the grapes.
Yes. Pinot Noir grapes, they can get really pricey really quickly because they're, it's such a delicate grape variety. It's so thin-skinned, and, all the places that I want to source my Pinot from are these established, like, old school vineyards. So I'm just gonna wait and be patient. I'll definitely make Pinot at some point in my career, but I love working with the varieties that I do.
Yeah, no, I can definitely taste that. I got to try some of your wines last night. You were pouring. I love that. I mean, I can totally see how your passion for Pinot does continue on into other grapes. I mean, last night I got to try your Mourvedre and your Barbera, and they were so lighter than I expected, and absolutely my style. I love a good light red. I know you said they were around 12.5%, and they had the most beautiful color. Is that something that you really strive for? Like, how do you get that beautiful color in your wines?
I have very low extraction, low tannin inclusion. I don't do a lot of stem inclusion. I de-stem everything, and then I also punch things down really gently. So I'm either punching the stuff down twice a day, or I'm just popping it in the tank and actually getting in those grapes and feeling pockets of warmth. It's a great way to check on your fermentation and make sure that everything's consistent and commingled.
Right. And as a smaller winemaker, I mean, it's just you there making the wines. You're doing everything, right? I know yesterday you mentioned that you're hand labeling, you're hand bottling, hand picking, and hand destemming. What else do you do at the?
So I hand destem my pied de cuve.
Hold on. Tell. So what else are you doing? I want to know more about the details.
Yes, so I hand destem my pied de cuves. I take 2 little 5-gallon buckets, once about 2 weeks before harvest, once about a week before harvest, and that's the only thing I do for hand destemming. If I hand destemmed a half a ton of fruit, that would be really, really really overwhelming. So yeah, all my fruit comes into the winery. I push it through a destemmer, a really delicate, gentle destemmer, so none of the berries really break down. And then I cold soak my wines for about 3 days. So I leave them on the skins with a lot of dry ice on top for 3 days, and I punch it down once a day during that period. After the 3rd day, I use my pied de cuve, and I basically create a starter over in the corner of my tank, and then after I've let it start that first day, I'll punch everything down twice a day for the next 2 weeks. So very low extraction, and that's one of the reasons it has such beautiful color.
Oh, it was gorgeous. I'm like, I want this bottle in a dress. I love that color. What is a pied de cuve?
Pied de cuve, it's a small fermentation that you'll start either in the vineyard or in the cellar, and it's all native yeasts. So you're utilizing the native yeasts that are in the vineyards, and it's a great way to sort of see what's going to happen with your larger fermentation. I really like starting mine those 2 weeks beforehand, just because I can go through, see on the 3rd day of that small batch, and really see what's happening if things are starting to warm up. So when my big batch comes, I can know, all right, it's day 4. I'm probably going to put a little just extra bit of dry ice because I know that things are going to start getting warm, and I like my fermentations to go slow and low.
Gotcha. So does that mean that you're fermenting most of your wines with the wild yeast, and this is that test point?
Yep, no added yeast. I do not inoculate. So my inoculation is that pied de cuve. It's I always say pied de cuves are like that perfect blend of art and science, because it is native yeast, but you are controlling it. A lot of low intervention winemakers, they'll bring their fruit in, and they'll let Mother Nature take over, and when the ferment starts, it starts. Me, it's still Mother Nature working, but I decide when she starts her action.
Gotcha. That sounds like a nice balance between being able to use the native yeast and let Mother Nature do her thing, but then also be able to kind of have a little control over what your outcome is going to be.
Exactly.
Did you learn that at a specific internship or is this something that you sort of started doing and just practicing on your own?
It's interesting because when I worked at Lumen Wines, we always inoculated. Majority of the wineries I've worked at, we inoculate. But I've seen other winemakers do Pied de Coups. Megan Zobeck of Burgess Wines, she always has done Pied de Coups, and I thought it was a really cool program. So in 2022, when I went to South Africa, I got them to start doing Pied de Coups with some of their smaller lots, and that was really cool to see those take off. And when I came back, I said, let's do it again.
Wow. Okay, so you also traveled to South Africa. Mm-hmm. Like I said, you've been all over the place.
I really have.
How do you feel that those experiences have influenced your winemaking today?
So for me, like, for South Africa, it was really cool because it was my first time working in a production facility that was all black. Like, all of the cellar hands were black, everyone in the tasting room was black, everyone in the vineyards was black. So that was really cool to just learn in an environment where everyone looked like me. That was really cool. And then for me, for New Zealand, it was really lovely because I got to see a really fun, like, small production team, but I got to be really involved in every single aspect of it, and I got to, like, really educate myself. And both of those different experiences, like, I had known I knew how to do the cellar, but in the meantime, I had never really done a lot of lab analysis. So each experience I do, I try and find spaces where I can do things that I know, but I can also continue to learn.
Yeah, I think that's a good mentality to have, continue learning. And because no matter what level you're at, especially with wine,
yes,
gosh, you could learn forever and still never be there.
You truly can.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit more about your wine brand and how that came to be. Where did the name Ward 4 Wines come from?
Ward 4 is like an extension of my family and my love for them. Ward 4 Wines pays homage to Washington, D.C., so I'm a fourth generation native of D.C. Grew up in the house my dad grew up in. He's 63, 65. He's been there since he was 9, had the same phone home number since he was 9, so fourth generation, like, Washingtonian. I then and also born in the 4th Ward of D.C. D.C. is created into all these different wards. I grew up in the 4th Ward. My mom's maiden name is Ward, which is like another really cool part of it. And then we're a small family of 4 people. Like, I didn't grow up with, like, lots of cousins, lots of uncles. It was our core 4.
Wow, that's so full circle. Like, the ward you grew up in, the number of people in your family.
I planned everything.
From conception, you were going to be like, I'm going to have a wine brand one day.
Yes.
I want to be born here so I can name it Ward 4.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Is there anything very special or in particular that your brand stands for?
Well, Ward 4 is pretty cool because although I'm working with all California grapes, all of the artists on my labels, they're women of color or non-binary people of color, specifically that grew up in Washington, D.C. So I'm getting, like, representation and visibility back into my city, getting to showcase these awesome artists, and also getting to show, like, these really cool landscapes of D.C. and, like, what my vision is.
Yeah, and do you get a new artist for every label, like every year, or is it the Barbera is always the same kind of?
I'm still in the process of deciding how that works. Like, I love all the labels that I have, and I'll probably do some tweaking, but there's always room for more goodies.
I love that, especially when you make new wines. Now, because I think you do a lot of single varietal, but do you do blends?
I am single varietal and single vineyard, so everything is, like, single vineyard source, so nothing is blending together. I love blends. I'm not big enough at this point to really do, like, a blended wine. I feel like if I were, it would have to be, like, more so a field blend, so I'd go somewhere and instead of doing, like, a lot of mini fermentations, which I don't have the capacity for, I'd probably end up going somewhere where it's like they got Cab, they got, Syrah, they got Merlot, they got Petit Verdot, they got Petit Syrah, and they give me one bin and they just, like, pick everything in together. That's really the only way I would be able to work with the blend, just because of my size, but I'm not against blends. I love blending wines. That's probably one of the coolest parts about doing winemaking, is just sort of seeing how everything plays off of each other.
Yeah, it is like a little symphony, right?
Exactly. It is an absolute symphony.
Well, Justin, this has been so fun. I've loved talking to you and getting to hear your story and learn about your wines. And I got to taste them last night, and they were fabulous. So very much my style. So let's play a little game. Pick one of your wines and pair them with the movies that you like to watch.
So my Mourvedre is an electric fuchsia dream. She's super fun and fruity. So I paired her with two really fun cult classics. The cult classic Heathers, which has Winona Ryder and Christian Slater. It's like the original Mean Girls, but it's got a lot more of that dark comedy, and it's got some amazing outfits, and it's also got the girl from Charmed, like the original Charmed. So it's just like really fun all around. And then my other movie that goes with that is incredible, and it's gonna be called But I'm a Cheerleader. It's got Natasha Lyonne from Orange is the New Black and from Russian Doll, and it basically has her as a cheerleader in high school. She's a lesbian woman, and she gets sent to a conversion camp, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be really dark, but it actually shows a lot of growth in herself as a person, and it's really fun.
All right, Justin. Well, thank you so much for your time. It has been wonderful chatting with you, and I really hope that everyone here listening feels like they got to really dive deep with you onto your wines, and I can't wait to see where you go in the future. I'm really excited for you.
Thank you, Kim. This has been awesome. I'm so excited.
And for people to follow along on your journey, where can we find you?
So www.ward4wines.com. I'm also on Instagram. Make sure to sign up for my mailing list. You'll actually get movie pairings there. So I can't wait to see you all.
Yes, thank you so much, Justin.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack USA. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.